Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might just save your relationships, boost your career, and keep you from eating humble pie every other day. It's a simple phrase: zip your mouth. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying never speak. I'm saying speak less, think more. Silence is powerful. You can learn a lot more by keeping your ears open and your mouth shut than the other way around. You see, the wise don't speak just to fill the silence. They speak when it's time to move the room, to add value, to shift direction. Everyone else, they're just rehearsing ignorance in public. Let's face it, most of our regrets come not from what we didn't say, but from what we did say too quickly, too sharply, or too foolishly. The wrong word at the wrong time can burn a bridge that took years to build. And here's the kicker. If you zip your mouth, you'll look smarter even when you're not. People will wonder what deep thoughts you're pondering. And in that space of mystery, respect grows. There's also a little thing called discipline. Zipping your mouth isn't weakness. It's self-mastery. It's realizing that you don't need to comment on everything. You don't need to defend every point. And you sure don't need to win every argument. Your mouth can be your greatest tool or your worst enemy. It can open doors or slam them shut. So the next time you're about to speak just to prove a point, try silence instead. You may find that nothing says more than saying nothing at all. Discipline over impulse. That's the mark of someone who's going somewhere. Most people speak because they feel something in the moment: frustration, excitement, ego. But that's not wisdom. That's impulse. And impulse will get you into trouble faster than a bad investment. You see, words spoken in the heat of the moment often create problems that only time and regret can fix. Discipline says, wait. Discipline says, breathe first, speak later, if at all. It's that small gap between emotion and action that separates those who react from those who lead. The disciplined person knows just because it feels good to say it doesn't mean it does good once it's said. You don't have to comment on everything. You don't have to prove you're right every time. You don't have to have the last word. Discipline lets you hold back, and that restraint builds strength, clarity, and respect. Because when you finally do speak, people listen. Silence is one of those rare tools that's always available, costs nothing, and yet holds immense power if you know how to use it. You see, most people are uncomfortable with silence. They think if no one's talking, something's wrong. So they rush to fill the space with noise, any noise. Explanations, defenses, stories, small talk, opinions. And in doing so, they give away the one thing that can never be reclaimed once spent. Rohn spent. Now here's the truth. Silence is never empty. It speaks volumes. In fact, sometimes silence is the most persuasive thing in the room. When you stay silent in a moment when everyone else is eager to speak, it shifts the energy. It makes people pause. It makes them wonder what you're thinking, what you're calculating. And just like that, you've positioned yourself as someone who doesn't need to prove anything. That's presence. Silence creates space for reflection, yours and theirs. In negotiation, in conflict, in leadership, that space is gold. Because in that space, people reveal themselves. Talk long enough, and most folks will tell you what they're afraid of, what they want, even what they're hiding. But you have to be quiet long enough to catch it. And silence isn't passive. It's active. It's a choice. It says, I don't need to speak to be in control. That's strategy. That's leverage. If you always jump in, always have a comment, always rush to fill the gap, then you've become predictable. And predictable people are easy to manage. But when you know how to hold back, people adjust to you. There's a reason the best negotiators pause before they speak. A reason the wisest leaders wait before they weigh in. A reason the most respected people don't always have the most to say, but always say the most with the fewest words. Silence is not avoidance. It's awareness. Awareness of timing. Awareness of purpose. Awareness of power. Sometimes your silence will make someone else uncomfortable enough to reveal something you could never have learned otherwise. Sometimes your silence says more than an hour-long speech. And sometimes staying silent is what allows you to actually hear, not just what's being said, but what's being meant. If you can master silence, you can master presence. And if you can master presence, you can shape outcomes without forcing them. That, my friend, is strategy. And it begins when you learn to zip your mouth on purpose. You ever notice how easy it is to speak first and think later? We've all done it. Blurted something out in a rush, only to wish we could roll it back, stuff those words right back in our mouth, but unfortunately, words don't come with a rewind button. Once they're out, and the damage or the benefit is done. Now here's a little rule I learned that changed everything: think, then speak. Simple, right? But don't let the simplicity fool you. This is one of those timeless disciplines that can save your career, your reputation, even your closest relationships. Thinking before speaking means you value ICE impact over impulse. You're not just speaking to hear yourself talk, you're speaking to make something better. You're weighing the outcome before releasing the input. That's wisdom. See, the mind works best when it's given a chance to process, to sort through the noise and reach for clarity. Most people react in the moment. They let emotion drive the wheel. Anger, pride, insecurity, even excitement. It all pushes them to say something fast, loud, or clever. But the people who make a lasting impression, the ones who seem to carry weight when they speak, they pause, they calculate, they consider. You know what that pause does? It creates space for maturity to step in. Because the first thought isn't always the best thought. The first reaction isn't always the wisest response. But if you take a breath, just a breath, you give yourself room to choose your words rather than spill them. There's a difference between speaking to express and speaking to impress. Most people go for the latter. They're trying to prove something. But when you think first, you're not trying to prove anything. You're trying to connect, to build, to unclarify. That kind of communication lasts. It resonates. People remember it. Thinking before speaking also guards your credibility. Every word you speak is a deposit or a withdrawal from your trust account. If you're careless with your words, people stop taking you seriously. But if your words are measured, thoughtful, intentional, people lean in. They want to hear what you have to say because they know you didn't just toss it out there. You meant it. And let me tell you, when your words carry weight, you don't have to say much. That's the secret. Some of the most powerful people speak the least, but when they do, it shifts the entire room. Why? Because their words are born from thought, not ego, from vision, not reaction. So next time you feel the urge to jump in, to make your point, to defend yourself, to sound smart, wait. Just wait a moment. Ask yourself, is this true? Is this kind? Is this necessary? Is this helpful? And then decide if it still needs to be said. If it does, say it well, say it clearly, say it with intention. And if it doesn't, let silence do the talking. Because sometimes the smartest thing you can say is nothing at all. Think, then speak. It's not just good advice. It's a habit that builds character, sharpens leadership, and protects everything you've worked hard to build. Control is strength. Not muscle, not volume, not dominance. Control, quiet, steady, invisible strength that doesn't need applause to be powerful. You know what I'm talking about? The kind of strength that keeps you calm when others are losing their heads. The kind that holds back when the easiest thing would be to lash out. The kind that waits patiently while everyone else rushes to be heard. Control is when you could explode, but you don't. You could win the argument, but you let it go. I could tear someone down with words, but you choose not to. That kind of strength, that's rare, that's real, and that's the kind of strength that lasts. See, people confuse loud with strong, but volume is often a sign of insecurity. The loudest one in the room usually has the most to prove, but the one who's quiet, composed, measured, that person knows something the others don't. They know that strength isn't about showing off, it's about showing a pulp, with character, with clarity, and with control. Let me tell you, it takes zero strength to react. Anybody can snap, anybody can yell, anybody can let their emotions run the show. But it takes real strength to pause, to breathe, to consider the consequences before making a move. That pause, that's power. That pause is what separates the average from the exceptional. Because when you control yourself, you control the moment. When you control the moment, you influence outcomes. People notice. They trust the person who doesn't panic under pressure. They follow the one who doesn't get rattled when things go sideways. That kind of steadiness, it's magnetic. It draws people in. Why? Because they know, deep down, that you're not going to be led by emotion. You're going to lead with principle. But here's the catch. Control isn't automatic. It's not easy. It's a daily discipline. It's learning to master your emotions instead of being mastered by them. It's learning to keep your mouth shut when it would feel better to speak. It's learning to listen when your ego wants to interrupt. That's strength. And you don't build that strength in public. You build it in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when no one's clapping. That's where the real work happens. And here's what's beautiful about it. Control gives you freedom. When you can control your reactions, you're no longer a slave to circumstance. You don't have to respond to every insult. You don't have to chase every argument. You don't have to explain yourself to people who don't want to understand you. You can just stay calm, focused, clear, and move forward. So don't waste your energy trying to prove how strong you are. Live it, practice it, and let your presence speak for itself. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who can stay steady when the ground shakes. people who don't crumble under pressure, people who understand the real power isn't in controlling others, it's in controlling yourself. That, my friend, is strength. You've probably heard the phrase, and knowledge is power, but let me tell you something even more powerful, and listening is the doorway to knowledge and chant. And not just hearing, but really listening, to learn. Listening with the intent to understand, not just to reply. Most people don't listen. They wait. They wait for their turn to speak. They wait for the pause so they can jump in with their story, their opinion, their version. That's not listening. That's rehearsing your response while the other person is still talking. But if you're always rehearsing, you're not receiving. And if you're not receiving, you're missing out on life's greatest teacher, the people around you. You can learn from anybody. Yes, anybody. The janitor, the CEO, the teenager, the elderly neighbor. Everyone has something to teach you if you're paying attention. But if your mouth is always running, your ears can't do their job. And that's the danger. Because the moment you believe you've got nothing left to learn is the moment you begin to drift into ignorance with confidence. Listening to learn requires humility. It means accepting that you don't know everything, that your perspective, as valuable as it may be, is still just one slice of the pie. It means being curious, staying open, and resisting the urge to dominate every conversation. Let me tell you something. People show you who they are when you let them speak. Their fears, their goals, their character, it all comes out if you let it. But you've got to stop trying to impress and start trying to understand. That's how trust is built. That's how influence is earned. That's how wisdom is gathered. You want to grow your business? Listen to your customers. You want to improve your marriage? Listen to your spouse. You want to become a better leader? Listen to your team. People are telling you what they need all the time. You just have to quiet down long enough to hear it. And listening doesn't just mean nodding your head while your thoughts are somewhere else. It means being present, making the other person feel like in that moment there's nowhere else you'd rather be. That kind of attention is rare, and people remember it. They open up to it. They respond to it. And most importantly, they respect it. Now, when you start listening this way, something magical happens. Start to learn things you didn't expect. You pick up insights between the lines. You catch the emotion behind the words. You start hearing what's not being said. And that's where the real wisdom lives, not in the obvious, but in the subtle. Great communicators aren't just great talkers. They're great listeners. They gather ideas, absorb stories, collect experiences. And when they finally do speak, people listen, because their words are rich with what they've gathered. So make it your mission not just to talk better, but to listen deeper. Because the more you listen, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you grow. And the more you grow, the more valuable you become. To your family, to your team, to your community, and to yourself. Listening to learn isn't passive. It's one of the most powerful active choices you can make. It's a discipline. It's a mindset. And in a noisy world full of people trying to be heard, the one who listens will always stand out. Because in the end, it's not just the loudest voice that leads. It's the one that listens first, learns deeply, and then speaks with wisdom. You know, life gives you just so much energy, so much focus, so much emotional bandwidth. And the question becomes, where are you spending it? Because every time you enter a battle, an argument, a conflict, a drama, you're making an investment of time, energy, clarity, and peace of mind. And if you're not careful, you'll spend it all on things that don't matter, with people who don't matter, over issues that won't matter a week from now. Avoiding unnecessary battles doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise to ways. It means you've got your eyes on the bigger picture. You've learned that not every disagreement needs to become a showdown. Not every challenge needs a counterattack. Not every critic deserves a response. And not every hill is worth dying on. Some people wake up looking for a fight, and if you offer them one, they'll gladly take you down a path that leads nowhere but wasted time and heightened stress. Don't follow them. Let them swing at the air. Let them talk to themselves. Because if you wrestle with a pig, even if you win, you still get muddy. Choose your battles like you choose your investments, carefully, strategically, and only when there's real return. Is it protecting your values? Is it guarding your family? Is it defending your integrity? If so, then stand tall, speak clear, and fight the good fight. But if it's just to be right, just to win a point, just to prove you're smarter, step back. Let it go. Preserve your peace. It takes discipline to walk away, to be silent when someone's itching for a reaction. But silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. Let fools battle over ego. You've got too much to build, too much to create, too much to become. You ever notice how the most successful people rarely engage in petty arguments? That's not because they don't have opinions. They just know what it costs to be constantly at war. They've learned that peace is expensive, but conflict is bankrupting. There will always be someone with a loud opinion, a sharp tongue, or a fragile ego. And they'll try to bait you. They'll twist your words, question your motives, challenge your decisions. Let them. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Let your results speak. Let your life speak. Let your discipline speak. And here's a secret. The higher you climb, the more quiet you'll have to become. Why? Because the view is better up there, but the air is thinner. You can't afford to carry the weight of every conflict. You can't afford to let someone else's chaos become your concern. You've got goals to reach, peace to protect, a future to build. Avoiding unnecessary battles is not giving up. It's leveling up. It's rising above what's beneath you. It's choosing growth over ego, purpose over pride, legacy over temporary satisfaction. So next time someone tries to drag you into a war of words, a tug of war for control, or a debate that serves no purpose, ask yourself one question: what will this cost me? And if the answer is your peace, your progress, or your power, walk away. Because that's not weakness. That's wisdom. Your reputation is your shadow. It follows you everywhere, into every room, every opportunity, every conversation where you're not even present. Long before you arrive, your reputation is already in the room introducing you. And long after you leave, it's still there, speaking on your behalf. Now here's the thing, you don't get to decide what your reputation is. Other people do. You only get to decide what you would give them to work with. Your behavior, your word, your consistency, your values, that's what shapes it. That's what builds the story they'll tell when you're not around. And the story matters. A good reputation doesn't happen by accident. It's earned. Over time, through actions that line up with words, through promises kept, through showing up not once, but again and again and again. People don't trust you because of what you say in a meeting. They trust you because of what they see. You do when the spotlight's off and no one's clapping. They trust you because you show up early, stay late, do the hard thing, and do it well. And let me tell you, your reputation is an asset more valuable than any title, any paycheck, any short-term win, because reputation opens doors that credentials can't. It brings opportunities you never applied for. It creates trust where others have to earn it from scratch. And in the long run, it separates the ones who flash from the ones who last. But here's the warning. Just as reputation is built over years, it can be destroyed in a moment. One lie, one lapse in integrity, one careless decision, and just like that, everything you worked for can be called into question. That's why you protect it, not out of fear, but out of respect for everything you've built and everyone who believes in you. You protect it by choosing your words carefully, by keeping your promises, especially the small ones that seem insignificant. You protect it by doing the right thing when no one's watching. You protect it by walking away from deals that feel a little too easy, a little too shady. Because your reputation is not for sale, it's your legacy. And if you're willing to compromise that for a shortcut or a quick win, then you haven't understood its value. A strong reputation also buys you something rare and a benefit of the doubt. When you make a mistake, and you will, people won't immediately assume the worst. They'll say, "That's not like him," or "C must have a good reason." That cushion of trust is priceless. But it only comes if you've earned it consistently by doing things the right way, even when it's harder, slower, or less popular. Your reputation is also your protection. When rumors come, when people question your character, when jealousy stirs up lies, your track record will defend you. Your name will speak louder than gossip. You won't have to fight every accusation because your work will speak for itself. But only if you've put in the work to build that foundation. Now, don't mistake this for perfection. No one's perfect. But you don't have to be perfect to protect your reputation. You just have to be honest, or responsible, and consistent. When you mess up, own it. When you fall short, apologize and fix it. People respect someone who takes ownership, not someone who pretends they never make mistakes. Reputation also means knowing when to say no. Not every opportunity is a good one. Not every crowd deserves your presence. Not every deal is worth your name on it. You've got to ask, will this elevate or erode what I've built? And if it threatens the integrity of your name, walk away. Because at the end of the day, you can always make another dollar, but you can't always rebuild a damaged reputation. So guard it, protect it. Don't gamble with it, because your name, once solid, is a foundation for everything else you want to build. Your relationships, your business, your legacy. And once broken, it takes far more time, effort, and humility to restore than it ever took to protect. Let the way you live speak so loudly that people don't need to ask who you are, they already know. Let your reputation be your silent resume. Because in a noisy world full of people talking, the person who lives well will always stand tallest. You don't need to announce your greatness. Just build a name that whispers it for you in every room you walk into, without you having to say a word. You know, in life, you don't always need to be the loudest to be heard. You don't need to say the most to make an impact. In fact, some of the most powerful people I've met hardly ever rushed to speak. They weren't in a hurry to fill the silence. They let the moment breathe. They understood something most people don't. There's power in the pause. You want to create presence? Don't rush, don't ramble, don't over-explain, just pause. Now I know what you might be thinking. Won't they forget I'm here if I don't speak up? No, quite the opposite. Because when you pause before you speak, when you give that moment just a second of stillness, you draw people in. You shift the atmosphere. You create gravity. The room leans forward, not because you shouted, but because you waited. That space, the pause, is the drum roll that sets the stage for what's coming next. Most people are addicted to filling space. The silence makes them nervous. They think if they're not talking, they're not in control. But real control comes from restraint. Real confidence doesn't need constant noise. It speaks when it's time, not just when there's an opening. And when it speaks, it's clear, it's sharp, it's deliberate, because it's been thought through. You see, that pause, it gives you time to choose your words. It gives a listener time to absorb what was just said. It creates rhythm. And rhythm matters, because we don't just remember words, we remember how they made us feel. And timing is what gives words emotion. A well-placed pause can say more than a paragraph. Let me put it this way. There's a difference between speaking and commanding attention. You can speak all day and still go unheard, but you pause in the right moment and suddenly everyone's listening. It's not because you raised your voice, it's because you raised your value. You gave your words weight by giving them eye space. Try it sometime. Next time you're speaking in a meeting, delivering an idea, telling a story, pause. Right before the key point. Let the silence stretch just a bit. Watch what happens. Eyes will lift, heads will turn. People will feel something. Not because you added more, but because you took a moment to let what was already there land. Now here's the trick. The pause only works if you've earned it. You earn it by being someone who speaks with substance, someone who doesn't waste words, someone who listens deeply, thinks clearly, and speaks intentionally. If you're always filling the room with noise, the pause won't feel powerful. It'll feel awkward. But if you've built a reputation for wisdom, for thoughtfulness, for clarity, that pause becomes your signature. It becomes your way of saying, pay attention, this matters. The pause also gives you authority over your emotions. You ever see someone lose their temper, then immediately regret what came out of their mouth? Happens all the time. But if you train yourself to pause, even for just a breath, you create a gap between emotion and action. And that gap, that's the space where maturity lives. That's the space where leaders are made. And don't forget, the pause isn't just for speaking. It works in your body language, too. You walk into a room with calm, deliberate movement, not frantic energy, and you command presence. People can feel when someone has composure. They can feel when you're not trying to impress, but just fully on being. And nothing's more magnetic than a person fully at peace in their own skin. That's what the pause gives you. Space to own the moment, space to shift the tone, space to let your presence speak louder than your volume. So slow down, stop trying to rush your way to relevance. Let the silence do some of the work. Give your thoughts time to settle. Give your words time to resonate. And above all, trust that presence doesn't come from talking more. It comes from knowing when to say less. Create presence through the pause. Master that, and you'll never have to compete for attention again. You'll de-command it. Quietly, confidently, powerfully.